Room 6. Door was locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry.
Her bag is here. Wallet, phone, even the room key. But where's Rachel? There's no way she just walked out.
Check the bathroom. The bed's untouched. It's like she stepped into this room and disappeared.
Disappeared? Or was someone already waiting for her?
April 14, 2018. The Blackwood Motel, a weathered roadside in off Highway 73. Rachel Morgan, 27, checked in at 8:47 p.m. She had been traveling alone from Denver to visit family 2 states away. A late spring storm rolled through that evening, rain pelting the parking lot, neon motel sign flickering through the downpour. Security cameras caught Rachel dragging her suitcase, umbrella dripping as she made her way down the narrow hallway. Room 6. Her room. She unlocked the door, stepped inside, and from that moment on, Rachel Morgan was never seen leaving. The Blackwood Motel wasn't known for luxury. Its cameras were grainy, its hallways narrow. But one camera, positioned above the entrance, clearly recorded Rachel's arrival. She looked tired, her hair damp from the rain, a large duffel bag over her shoulder and a small suitcase rolling behind her. She paused briefly in the hallway as if checking the numbers on the doors, then disappeared into room 6. The camera kept recording all night. Guests came and went. A family checked in down the hall. A trucker grabbed ice from the machine. But not once did anyone see Rachel leave. If you saw this footage, would you believe Rachel simply vanished, or that the cameras had somehow missed the truth? When staff entered the room the next morning, they expected to find a guest asleep or already checked out. Instead, they found something stranger. The bed was neatly made. A half-empty bottle of water sat on the nightstand. Rachel's suitcase was propped open near the desk, clothes folded neatly inside. Her phone was charging on the nightstand, wallet on the dresser, car keys on the desk. Everything was there, except Rachel. The first question investigators asked, how could she have left? The door locked from the inside. No sign of tampering, no forced entry. The windows were locked as well. The bathroom window was painted shut. A detail staff confirmed had been that way for years. To the detectives, it seemed impossible. Rachel had gone into the room, but no one could explain how she came out. What would you think at this point? An inside job by someone with a key? Or something stranger? A few guests at the motel remembered seeing Rachel. The family down the hall recalled a young woman in the hallway with wet hair. A trucker who had been staying in room 8 said he thought he heard footsteps pacing around in room 6 late that night. But no one saw her leave. And strangest of all, no one reported hearing a struggle. No raised voices, no screams, just silence. Then came the motel manager, Thomas Grady. He said Rachel had checked in quickly. She was polite but quiet, handed over her ID, paid for the night, and went straight to her room. But Grady also admitted something odd. Around 11 p.m., while doing his nightly rounds, he thought he saw the light in room 6 flicker, as if someone was moving in front of it. When he knocked, there was no answer. He moved on, assuming she had gone to sleep. But by morning, her car was still parked outside, untouched. Detectives floated their first theory. Maybe Rachel had slipped out unnoticed. Maybe she left on foot into the rainy night. But that theory quickly collapsed. Her phone, her wallet, her keys, even her umbrella, were all still inside the room. If Rachel had walked out, why would she leave behind everything she needed? At this stage, what theory would you lean toward? That Rachel left willingly, or that someone else had been in room 6 that night? Rachel Morgan wasn't a drifter. She wasn't someone who simply disappeared on a whim. At 27, Rachel was a teacher's assistant at a Denver elementary school. Friends described her as reliable, warm, the kind of person who showed up early and stayed late to help kids who were falling behind. She loved books, had a habit of writing long letters to her parents, and dreamed of one day becoming a full-time teacher. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't impulsive. That made her disappearance all the more unthinkable. Do you think someone like Rachel, with her life so firmly rooted, would just choose to walk away? Or does her stability point toward foul play? Rachel's journey that April began with a simple plan: drive to Kansas to visit her sister. She left Denver mid-afternoon, her silver sedan packed with an overnight bag and a stack of library books. Her route was straightforward: I-70 east until the turnoff for Highway 73. The Blackwood Motel was supposed to be just a stopover, a place to rest before finishing the last leg of the trip the next day. Rachel's sister expected her by noon. But Rachel never arrived. Investigators pulled Rachel's phone records. At 9:15 p.m., shortly after checking in, she called her sister. They spoke briefly. Rachel said she was tired but fine. She mentioned the storm, laughed about her soaked clothes, and said she would see her the next day. That was the last known call she ever made. After that, her phone sat untouched on the motel nightstand, still plugged into its charger when police entered the room. Her car sat outside the motel, rain-speckled and untouched. Inside, officers found the driver's seat pulled forward, as if Rachel had adjusted it for herself. Her overnight bag was in the trunk. Nothing inside suggested she had planned to run. And yet, the keys were still in her room. Would you see this as proof Rachel never intended to leave? Or does it suggest someone else intended for her not to? A man staying in room 7 came forward. He claimed that at around 12:30 a.m., he heard faint voices through the thin motel walls. One was a woman's, soft, nervous. The other was deeper, male but muffled. He assumed it was just an argument between guests. But when asked if he thought the woman's voice sounded like Rachel, he admitted it could have been. No one else reported hearing it. But the walls of the Blackwood Motel were thin. If there was a conversation, why did only one man notice it? Attention then shifted back to Thomas Grady, the motel manager. He insisted Rachel checked in alone. He said he never saw her speak to anyone else. But when pressed, he admitted something troubling. The spare keys to the rooms were not accounted for. One was missing. Grady shrugged it off, maybe misplaced, maybe lost. But to detectives, it meant one thing. Someone could have entered room 6 that night, without forcing the lock. What do you think? Was Grady careless, or hiding something more sinister? In Rachel's suitcase, detectives found a leather-bound journal. Most of it was filled with lesson plans, little doodles, notes to herself. But one entry, dated 2 weeks before her trip, stood out. I've been feeling uneasy lately, like someone is watching. I thought I saw the same man outside my apartment twice this week. Maybe I'm overthinking. But I don't feel safe walking alone anymore. Her friends hadn't mentioned this. Her family hadn't known. Had Rachel been stalked before she ever set foot in Blackwood Motel? Footage from the motel's outdoor camera showed something odd. At 1:03 a.m., headlights swept across the lot. A dark sedan pulled in, idled for nearly 15 minutes, then drove away. No one ever got out. The plate was unreadable in the rain, the camera too grainy to capture details. But some investigators began to suspect that whoever was in that car may have been watching room 6. By this point, 3 theories emerged. Rachel left willingly despite appearances. Someone with a spare key entered her room. Rachel was taken by someone waiting outside. But none explained the locked door. None explained why her belongings were untouched. None explained the silence. If you were leading this case, which theory would you pursue first? Blackwood was a small town. Word spread fast. Locals whispered about the motel being bad luck. Some said it wasn't the first time guests had gone missing. Others swore they had seen Rachel the next morning, walking near the woods behind the property. But no proof ever surfaced. Instead, the motel quickly gained a reputation, not as a place to stay but as a place to avoid. One detective, Angela Ruiz, admitted she couldn't shake the feeling that the crime scene was too clean. It's like whoever did this knew how to leave nothing behind. No prints, no fibers, nothing disturbed. Either it was professional, or it was staged. But staged by whom? By the end of the first week, Rachel's case seemed cold already. No suspects, no leads, no trace. But then a single piece of evidence surfaced, something no one expected. It wasn't found in room 6. It wasn't found in the parking lot. It was found in another guest room, down the hall. Room 9, just 3 doors down from Rachel's. When investigators canvassed the motel, they entered each occupied room with the guest's permission. Most were unremarkable, families passing through, truckers on overnight hauls. But in room 9, a guest's belongings revealed something unusual. A torn page from a local newspaper. On it was an article about Rachel's disappearance, the very story that had just begun circulating that week. The guest, a man in his 40s named David Holloway, claimed he'd clipped it because he found the case interesting. But investigators thought otherwise. Why would someone staying in the same motel save a clipping of a disappearance that happened just down the hall? Holloway was a traveling salesman. Or at least that's what he said. Records showed he checked into Blackwood Motel 2 nights before Rachel. He paid in cash. His car, an old blue pickup, had paper plates, making it harder to trace. He kept mostly to himself, but staff recalled he asked specifically for a room near the vending machine, which happened to place him near room 6. When detectives pressed him about the newspaper clipping, Holloway shrugged. People vanish all the time. I just wanted to keep up with the story. But there was a problem. The article was published after Rachel went missing, which meant Holloway clipped it while staying at the same motel. Investigators went back to surveillance footage. At 12:15 a.m., the night Rachel disappeared, Holloway was seen leaving his room heading toward the vending machine. He lingered in the hallway for nearly 5 minutes before returning. The camera didn't show him knocking on any doors, but it placed him in the hallway at the same time Rachel's neighbor claimed to hear voices through the wall. Coincidence? Or was Holloway the man Rachel was overheard speaking to? When Holloway's room was searched more thoroughly, police found a matchbook tucked inside his suitcase. The matchbook bore the logo of a diner located 30 miles away, the same diner Rachel had stopped at earlier that day, confirmed by her credit card receipt. Holloway insisted he had eaten there on his way into town. But was it just coincidence that both Rachel and Holloway had been at the same diner on the same day, before ending up at the same motel? Thomas Grady, the motel manager, swore Holloway had been nothing but polite. He claimed Holloway spent most of his time smoking outside and hadn't seemed interested in anyone. But another clerk disagreed. She recalled Holloway asking odd questions when Rachel checked in. Does she look like she's traveling alone? The clerk admitted she brushed it off at the time. But in hindsight, it chilled her. When detectives reviewed Rachel's journal again, something clicked. The entry where she mentioned a man watching her, tall, dark jacket, lingering near her apartment, bore a description eerily similar to Holloway. Rachel had written that she wasn't sure if it was paranoia or truth. Now, investigators wondered, had the man who shadowed her in Denver been the same man who checked into the motel days before she arrived? Holloway denied it all. He said he had nothing to do with Rachel, that he never spoke to her, that he only heard about her disappearance after seeing police arrive. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, he told reporters later. But if that were true, why did so many little details tie him to Rachel's path? Phone records revealed another oddity. At 10:42 p.m., about an hour after Rachel checked in, a call was placed from Holloway's prepaid phone. The number dialed? A disconnected line registered in Denver. Investigators couldn't trace who he was trying to call, but the timing raised alarms. Was Holloway checking in with someone about Rachel's whereabouts? Or was it just another bizarre coincidence? The investigation split down the middle. Some detectives believed Holloway was guilty. The timing, the coincidences, the proximity were too much to ignore. Others warned it was circumstantial. There was no physical evidence tying him to room 6. No prints. No DNA. And the locked door remained unexplained. If you were the detective, would you push harder on Holloway, or look elsewhere? Just as Holloway was about to be named the prime suspect, something happened that changed the course of the case. Room 6, Rachel's room, had been sealed off after her disappearance. But when investigators returned for a second search, they found something new. Something that wasn't there before. Studio microphone, the Blackwood Motel mystery. By the end of the second week, investigators were growing frustrated. Every lead pointed in a direction, but none provided answers. Rachel's family pleaded for more searches. So, detectives returned to room 6. The bed was still neatly made. The phone still plugged into the charger. Nothing seemed different, until one officer opened the nightstand drawer. Inside was a matchbox. But this wasn't the same one found in Holloway's room. This one bore the logo of a Denver coffee shop, a small, local cafe Rachel was known to frequent. Her friends confirmed she'd been there days before her trip. The matchbox hadn't been there during the first search. Multiple officers swore the drawer had been empty. So the question was chilling. Who placed it there after the room had already been sealed? When detectives pulled hallway footage to see if anyone had entered room 6 after the police sealed it, they found something even stranger. Between 2:13 and 2:26 a.m. on April 16, 2 days after Rachel's disappearance, the hallway camera feed cut to static. No other cameras in the motel glitched that night. Just the one outside room 6. And when the feed returned, the door to room 6 was slightly ajar. The motel manager swore no one had entered. The keys were locked up. But someone had been inside. Someone who left behind an object tied directly to Rachel's life in Denver. Theories exploded. Was it the perpetrator returning to toy with investigators? Or was someone trying to plant evidence to frame Holloway, or anyone else? At this point, Rachel's sister, Anna, gave an emotional interview. She described Rachel as cautious but not fearful. She said Rachel had joked about the motel over the phone, calling it sketchy but cheap. But Anna added something else. 2 weeks before Rachel's trip, Rachel had confided in her about a man, someone who had been lingering near her school parking lot, someone Rachel believed might be following her. Anna didn't take it seriously at the time, but now, she wondered if that same man had followed Rachel all the way to Blackwood. During the second search, another officer lifted the mattress. Beneath it, taped to the frame, was a folded piece of paper. It was damp, smudged, but readable. 4 words, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "Don't trust room 9. The note was unsigned. Investigators couldn't confirm if Rachel wrote it, or if it was planted like the matchbox. But if Rachel did write it, it pointed directly at David Holloway. When confronted with the note, Holloway scoffed. "If I wanted to hurt her, do you think I'd leave a note pointing to myself?" It was a fair point. Was the note genuine? Or was someone deliberately trying to frame Holloway? Without physical evidence, detectives were stuck. But public opinion had already turned. In the eyes of many, Holloway was guilty. The media labeled him the motel stalker. Headlines screamed, "The man in room 9." Meanwhile, suspicion fell back on Thomas Grady, the motel manager. Records showed that in the last year, 3 separate women had filed complaints about feeling unsafe at Blackwood Motel, all during nights when Grady was working. He denied wrongdoing. But when pressed about the missing spare key, his story shifted. First he said it had been lost weeks earlier. Then he claimed it might have been misplaced that very night. The inconsistency alarmed detectives. Was Grady incompetent, or hiding something? By now, Rachel's disappearance wasn't just a local story. National outlets picked it up, dubbing it the Blackwood Motel mystery. Internet forums buzzed with theories. Holloway was a drifter predator. Grady was running a cover-up. Rachel's stalker followed her from Denver. Or worse, that the motel itself had some kind of hidden history no one wanted exposed. But through it all, one fact remained. Rachel had gone into room 6, and never come out. Just when it seemed the case was going cold again, another break arrived. A local boy, walking his dog near the woods behind the motel, stumbled upon something strange. A shoe. It was a woman's size 7, matching Rachel's. And it was half buried in the mud. What happened in room 6? This is where the investigation pushes beyond the motel and into the woods, uncovering more unsettling details. Studio microphone, the Blackwood Motel mystery. The discovery was made less than 300 yards from the Blackwood Motel. A boy walking his dog noticed fabric sticking out of the mud near a cluster of pine trees. He tugged it free and realized it was a shoe. A woman's shoe. Size 7. Rachel's sister confirmed. It matched the pair Rachel had been wearing when she left Denver. But if Rachel had been taken, why was only one shoe found? And why so close to the motel? Authorities brought in search dogs. For 2 days they combed the woods, moving deeper into the undergrowth, marking every potential clue. They found cigarette butts, beer cans, discarded wrappers, but nothing that tied directly to Rachel. The dogs traced a faint scent trail leading away from the motel, toward an old service road. But halfway down the trail, the scent disappeared. It was as if Rachel's presence had been cut off mid-step. Do you think this meant she was taken by car? Or was it just the storm washing her trail away? About a mile from the motel, searchers stumbled upon a small abandoned cabin. The windows were broken, the roof sagging. Inside, old newspapers littered the floor. But in the corner, beneath the dust, they found something strange. A motel key. Rusted, bent, but clearly stamped with the number 6. Had someone moved it there to taunt investigators? Or was it proof Rachel had been taken through the woods and kept here, even briefly? Then came another discovery. Buried in thick brush near the service road, officers found a dark sedan. Abandoned, plates removed, windshield cracked. The interior reeked of mildew, but beneath the passenger seat lay a torn scrap of fabric. It was floral, pale, matching the blouse Rachel had been wearing in her last known sighting. Tests would later confirm it was her clothing. But the car had no fingerprints, no traceable VIN. It was a ghost vehicle, dumped and forgotten. By now, Blackwood wasn't just uneasy, it was terrified. Parents stopped letting children play outside. Travelers avoided the motel completely. Local diners buzzed with whispers. Some insisted the motel had been cursed for decades. Others whispered of a network of traffickers using it as cover. For the first time, the case wasn't just about Rachel. It was about a community living under the shadow of fear. A name emerged, Michael Rennick. Rennick was a handyman who occasionally worked for the motel. He had a record, trespassing, harassment, even a past accusation of stalking that never led to charges. A witness claimed they saw a man resembling Rennick near the service road on the night Rachel disappeared. Rennick denied everything. He said he hadn't worked at the motel in months. But when detectives visited his home, they found a Denver coffee shop receipt, the very same cafe where Rachel had been spotted. Coincidence? Or connection? The investigation now had three main suspects. David Holloway, the man in room 9 with the newspaper clipping and diner matchbook. Thomas Grady, the motel manager with his missing spare key and shifting story. Michael Rennick, the handyman with a troubling past and a link to Rachel's favorite cafe. Each man seemed guilty in pieces, but none could be proven guilty in full. For the third time, detectives searched Rachel's car. This time they removed the backseat. And hidden in the lining they found something overlooked before. A folded piece of paper. It was torn from a motel notepad, and it bore a chilling sentence in neat handwriting. "Meet me outside at midnight." The note wasn't signed, and there were no fingerprints. Who do you think left the note? Did Rachel willingly step outside, or was it planted after she vanished? As weeks passed, the Blackwood Motel grew emptier, its neon sign flickering against the stormy skies. Detectives knew the longer Rachel was gone, the colder the case would grow. But then, a final piece of evidence surfaced. It didn't come from the motel. It didn't come from the woods. It came from Rachel herself. 4 weeks, Rachel's phone sat in the evidence locker. Investigators had already combed through her call logs and texts. But in desperation, they brought in a digital forensics team to dig deeper. And that's when they found it. A draft message never sent. Timestamp: 11:57 p.m. April 14th, less than 2 hours after Rachel checked into room 6. The message read, "Something's wrong. Someone at the door." Before she could hit send, the draft saved automatically. It was the last digital footprint Rachel ever left. The discovery sparked new theories. If Rachel typed the message at 11:57 p.m., that meant someone knocked or entered room 6 at that exact time. But who had access? Holloway lingering in the hallway around midnight. Grady with the spare key unaccounted for. Rennick, the handyman who may have known how to jimmy the locks. The draft message didn't name anyone, but it proved Rachel hadn't simply disappeared. Something, or someone, had come to her door. Investigators returned once again to the abandoned sedan in the woods. This time, under the rear floor mat, they discovered a second scrap of fabric. It was a thin strap, torn clean, consistent with the lining of a purse. Tests confirmed traces of Rachel's DNA. Now the woods, the car, and room 6 were undeniably connected. But the question remained, which man had led her there? As the weeks stretched on, Blackwood grew restless. Rachel's family gave tearful pleas on the courthouse steps. Volunteers distributed flyers across 3 counties. But the community's anger began to boil. Some wanted Holloway arrested immediately. Others pointed fingers at Grady, the man who had run the motel for 20 years. A smaller group swore Rennick was the true culprit. Blackwood became divided. And in the middle of it all, Rachel remained missing. Digging into old records, journalists uncovered an unsettling detail. The Blackwood Motel had been the site of 2 other disappearances in the 1990s, both women traveling alone. Neither case had ever been solved. Both were dismissed as runaways. But now, with Rachel gone, the motel's reputation darkened further. Was it just coincidence? Or had the motel been hiding secrets for decades? Handyman questioned again. When detectives circled back to Michael Rennick, the handyman, they found another troubling detail. A receipt in his trash dated the day after Rachel vanished, for cleaning supplies. Bleach, gloves, garbage bags. Rennick claimed he did odd jobs and the purchase was unrelated. But investigators couldn't shake the timing. Did Rennick buy those supplies for his work, or to cover something up?
Meanwhile, Thomas Grady, the motel manager, began to crack under pressure. In an interview with detectives, he admitted the motel's financial troubles. Occupancy was low. Repairs were overdue. But then he muttered something odd. Room 6 has always been bad luck. I told her not to take it. I told her. Detectives pressed him, but Grady refused to explain what he meant. What exactly had he known about room 6? The chilling weight of Rachel's draft text settled over the case. Something's wrong. Someone at the door. It proved the timeline. At midnight, Rachel was alive. At midnight, she was afraid. And by dawn, she was gone. Who do you think Rachel meant? Which face was on the other side of that door? Detectives felt closer to an answer, but still couldn't pin down the truth. Then came a breakthrough. A piece of evidence surfaced not in Blackwood, not in the woods, but 50 miles away, in Denver. And it tied Rachel's past directly to one of the men under suspicion. The evidence surfaced in Denver. A small storage unit, rented under a false name, was flagged after police followed up on Rachel's journal entry about being watched. Inside the unit were boxes of junk, old clothing, and shoved in the corner, a stack of photographs. Some were street shots of women, blurry, candid, clearly taken without consent. And among them was Rachel, standing outside her apartment, walking to her car, teaching in her classroom. The man behind the lens hadn't just noticed Rachel at the motel. He'd been watching her for weeks. The storage unit was traced back to Michael Rennick, the handyman. Receipts tied to his address, handwriting matching his signatures. And in the same unit, detectives found a single motel key, number 6. The key Rachel's room had been missing. The same key Grady claimed had been lost. Now there was no denying it. Rennick had access to room 6 that night. Piece by piece, detectives rebuilt the night of April 14th. Rachel checked in at 8:47 p.m. At 9:15, she called her sister. At 11:57, she typed the draft. Someone at the door. At midnight, Rennick used the spare key to enter room 6. By 12:30, Rachel's neighbor heard muffled voices. Sometime after, she was forced out, through the woods into the waiting sedan. And from there, she was gone. Rennick was arrested and charged. But even as evidence mounted, the photos, the key, the fabric in the sedan, Rennick never confessed. He claimed he was being framed, that someone planted the items, that room 6 was cursed. But the jury didn't believe him, and Rachel Morgan's disappearance was officially closed. Yet, questions lingered. Rachel's body was never recovered. Some investigators believe Rennick had an accomplice. Someone who drove the sedan, someone who helped hide her. Others insist Rennick acted alone, that his obsession with Rachel spiraled into violence. Either way, the case left a hole in Blackwood, a town forever haunted by the night a young woman entered room 6 and never walked out. Rachel Morgan's story is more than a disappearance. It is a reminder that even in the most ordinary places, a roadside motel, a rainy night, a locked door, shadows can lurk. So I'll ask you, did you see it coming? Did you piece together the clues that pointed to Rennick? Or did the motel's shadows mislead you too? Because sometimes, the scariest stories aren't about what we see, they're about what we miss. And in Blackwood, one missed detail was enough to erase a life. If you made it this far, you've proven your detective instincts are sharp. So don't miss the next case. Subscribe to Crimes in Plain Sight for more fictional true crime mysteries. Every week, we uncover another story that will test your mind and keep you questioning long after the screen goes dark.